Today's lesson is inspired by Isaiah chapter 43, verses 18 and 19, as read in the New International Version of the Bible. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Again, that's Isaiah chapter 43, verses 18 and 19. It's New Year's Day, and once again we celebrate a new beginning as we let go of our past and make space for a productive and inspiring future. Notice I said productive and not better. This coming year will be no better or worse than any other year we've ever experienced. Years are not good or bad at all. They're just periods of time. What makes us perceive our past, or our future for that matter, as good or bad is our memory and perception of the things we've experienced. It's our judgment. And that's what our discussion is about today. Letting go of our judgments and expectations so that we can be prepared for whatever comes our way in the most productive, positive way possible. There is no arguing that the past few years have been challenging. Whether it's viruses, political unrest, the passing of loved ones and friends, an economic roller coaster ride, or whatever we might have experienced, it certainly hasn't been a breeze for many folks. As humans, we have a tendency to dwell on the tragedies and disappointments in our lives, and sometimes they can distract us from the many blessings that come with them and in between them. It was never promised to us that life would be perfect. I think nature dictates that that kind of perfection is not possible. I remind folks regularly that if everything was good all the time, we wouldn't even recognize it because it would seem so ordinary. Sometimes we need disruption in our lives. It gives us some contrast so that we can find appreciation for the things we value most. And those disruptions happen in many aspects of our life: weather, relationships, jobs, car trouble, illness, and even road projects. Numerologically, 2021 had a 5 energy, an energy of change, and a lot of changes happened in our lives in the past year, and we've survived it. 2022 has a 6 energy, an energy of service, overcoming our challenges and making the best use of them to uplift ourselves and those around us. And that's a great opportunity for all of us. As we celebrate our 6th anniversary here at the Meditation Center, and we gather again for the annual New Year celebration, changes continue all around us. While the hype has died down about the widening of the road that passes in front of our center, change is still in progress and coming soon. It's quite likely that we won't be meeting in that space next New Year's Day, or maybe even 6 months from now. But that's okay. We will find our way, and so will you. We always do. Change is meant to happen. What was real in our lives yesterday is just a memory today, and what's happening today may influence our tomorrow, but part of our lesson in life is to survive, embrace, and appreciate this change, rather than dwelling on what cannot be changed. Yes, the road project is a disruption, but it will be temporary and soon forgotten. Yes, having to give up our space will also be a disruption, but it opens doors for new opportunities that we might not have ever considered otherwise. And however it turns out, it will be all right. That's the point. In our scripture lesson, God has promised to deliver the people of Israel from Babylon, where life is in turmoil. God has reminded them of their past challenges and how little they've learned from them. They're stuck in the past. They're stuck in their routines. They're stuck in their selfish ways. In the book of Genesis, a disappointed God wiped out most of humanity with a great flood because they didn't get it. And now God has told them that they still don't get it. God has said that the Israelites are not going to be destroyed again, and they'll still be protected and liberated, but they need to learn to appreciate what they have. A new beginning and new opportunities are possible and are happening, but we have to pay attention and do our part to release the ideas, the attachments, and the fears of our past, so that we can change as change takes place around us. This is a very simple lesson, but the words that are used in Scripture can carry deeper meaning too. Remember that every person, every place, and every situation in the Bible represent part of our own spiritual journey. The Bible isn't about strangers who existed in faraway places thousands of years ago. It's about you and me and us together on our path of spiritual unfoldment. With the help of the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, we can look deeper into these sentences to find that hidden message. To begin with, in metaphysical philosophy, we don't see God as a person who could have a conversation with us personally. God is the creative force of the universe, the laws of nature in action. When we understand this, we realize that we're not victims of change. We're not innocent bystanders watching it happening on TV. We are part of that change. Let's start with the situation. Isaiah is conveying a story of God addressing the people of Israel living in Babylon. Isaiah, the attributed author of this book, is our higher self, the part of us that discerns reality, the real character of spiritual humanity. It is Isaiah, this higher self, that helps us learn the lessons of life. The people of Israel represent illumined thoughts in our consciousness, which are undergoing spiritual discipline, learning to see things with a spiritual eye instead of in our earthly ways. Babylon is when our consciousness is in a state of confusion or being mixed up, or chaotic in situation, sense, or mind, which tends to imprison us through our thoughts. The first sentence is the key to the lesson. Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. Things are our thoughts, lowered in vibration to the level of sense perception, earthly matters and ego-based thought rather than spiritual ideas. The old or former or past things represent our false beliefs deeply embedded in the human mind, focusing on earthly ideas instead of spiritual truth. The next sentence is, "See, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" Those things or thoughts we just talked about are changing. They have to. A different sense of thought is evolving. We have to pay attention and go with the flow instead of ignoring it or fighting it or pretending it isn't there. New things represent our understanding the spiritual facts of being, rather than focusing on the old earthly ideas that we may have attached ourselves to. The passage ends, "I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." The way is I am consciousness, the open door to the kingdom of heaven within us. It is our realization of the unity of God and self. The wilderness we're finding our way out of is the undisciplined and uncultivated thoughts in our consciousness. It's our earthly responses and perceptions of our experiences. Streams or rivers are currents of vital forces of thought or life. They are the power of co-creation within us in action. They lead us out of the wasteland or desert, which is the lack of substance and life in our consciousness. The streams of higher consciousness irrigate the desert of lack and foster new growth and unfoldment where desolate fear, inaction, and apathy once existed. Putting it all together, this short passage is reminding us not to get hung up on the past. These things or thoughts no longer exist except in our mind. And these thoughts of the past should not dictate our future, for that hasn't happened yet. When we recognize change, and we accept change, and we embrace change, we become part of the process of change instead of fighting it. The abundant stream of new thought carries us out of the former wasteland of fear, doubt, worry, and apathy, which can't exist when we're no longer living in it. Life is so much easier when we're going with the flow instead of trying to swim against it. In our story, God reprimands the people for being reverent and saying all the right words, but still not getting it. Even after bringing suffering to the people multiple times, they still didn't get it. God also reminds them of all the times they were rescued from their situations, even though they still didn't learn the lessons the situations were supposed to teach. It's this lesson that may have inspired Jesus later on to ask, "Do you have eyes but fail to see, and ears but fail to hear? And don't you remember?" That's Mark chapter 8, verse 18. Again, it's not a personified God doing all of this, but it's our way of processing the way life works. The universe works a certain way, and sometimes it seems to get in our way, and sometimes we get in the way of the universe. Either way, we need to deal with it. We can pray and beg all we want, but that doesn't stop the universe from happening. Once we understand that idea of getting in the way and learn to step aside and allow it to happen more naturally, it stops being an obstacle, and it stops inspiring the confusion we tend to experience with it. We come into this life equipped with everything we need to deal with any situation in a way that serves our highest good. Sometimes our ego doesn't like it, and that's where our Babylon-like chaos starts rearing its unpleasant head. It's easy to point out a cause. It's not always easy to make a solution, but we can. How do we do this? Stop getting caught up in expectations, your own or those of others, and the drama that comes out of them. Instead, focus on what is right, even if it isn't ideal. Stop dwelling on the old things, and instead look for and welcome the new things, whatever they happen to be. Rise above your earthly woes to look at things more spiritually. This inner expression of divinity will guide your way along a stream of higher consciousness, leaving the wasteland of earthly frustrations behind and showing you the way through a wilderness of experience to find new, more productive ideas. And you'll never have to go back. Yes, sometimes things seem chaotic. That's when it's all the more important to take a step back, take a deep breath, or a few, and just say thank you. So as we reflect on the past year, let our thoughts focus on how we've grown rather than how we got here. Let go of the frustration and pain you might have experienced and make room for newer, more enriching ways of navigating your life. We have a special opportunity in this life to learn and understand what it's all about. If we're busy focusing on shoulda, woulda, couldas, we aren't paying attention to the blessings that come our way every single day. Yes, sometimes we need a little slap in the face to remind us of this. It might be an illness, it might be a flood, it might be a scammer, it might be an earthquake, it might be a shortage of toilet paper. Remember when that was a thing? Those are our wake-up calls, the same kind of wake-up call that God gave the Israelites in Babylon in our story. It isn't about the confusion and chaos we're living in. It's about how we rise above the chaos to find peace, no matter what's going on around us. As we venture into this new year, even with all of the uncertainty our earthly mind might conjure up, let us find our peace. Let us share love. Let us spread light. And by expressing that divine energy from within us, any challenges we might find along the way will be stepping stones instead of roadblocks. Many blessings to you, and Happy New Year. For additional lessons and meditation ideas, visit our website at www.meditatewnc.org. Thank you for joining us.